friends, it's Becky here with Bountifully Blessed. I am just kind of doing some random late night cooking. I don't know if you have that same issue, but sometimes I just kind of get in the mood to bake or cook or do something randomly in the middle of the night or when it's late. And I should probably either be going to bed or doing something else. But I really want to get some garlic powder going, and I thought I'd bring you guys along to show you the process. So we're getting started tonight while I just heated up some delicious smokehouse ribs. It's smoked half rack of ribs. So I've got these cooling off right here. Late night dinner, but they are heavenly, and I really just wanted to bring you along with how easy it is to make your own garlic powder, garlic salt, whatever it is. It's really, really easy. So I've got my first garlic season this year. I'm really excited. I'll be bringing you guys along that journey, but I've been doing this for a little bit now, where I get a big bag of garlic from the store and I can make some garlic salt and garlic powder from that. And it originally actually started because I had some garlic that I didn't get to use all of it, and it started to not look so pleasant anymore and I was honestly a little afraid to use it. And so I was like, well, you know what, I gotta do something with it. And I was out of garlic powder. So I decided to make some garlic powder, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Why have I not been doing this the whole time? So even though my first harvest of garlic won't be until next year, which I'm extremely excited about, you can still make amazing garlic powder and garlic salt, and it's really simple. So I've got my bowl here that I have just a couple of little cloves of garlic. They're not de-paper-fied. Oh. And so I've just got this nice little bag from my local Winco. It's like $3.50, and it comes with, let's see, mine came with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cloves of garlic, heads of garlic. So I'm just going to get them all out of their little papers here, and then we're going to throw these in the dehydrator. Now, you don't have to have a dehydrator for this. It's nice to have, but it's not a necessity. You can use your oven to dehydrate garlic. I actually went on Amazon because I didn't like having so much heat going in my kitchen. And so I got on Amazon and I just found a very, very basic dehydrator, nothing fancy. It doesn't have any functions or anything on it. And because we're still in an apartment, I had to worry about space as well. And so what I actually did is I found one that was, I want to say it was like $30 or $40 maybe. And it is very basic. You literally plug it in. That's it. It has no on-off switch. It doesn't have anything like that. It literally is just plug it in, that turns it on, unplug it, that turns it off. That's it. So you can do that if you want. It's very, very basic. I actually have it right here on my counter behind me. And so I will show that to you when I am actually ready to go here. So I am just getting all of the papers off the garlic. Now, there's a lot of different techniques you can use for getting the paper off your garlic. I have discovered quite a few options that are pretty cool, but honestly, there's so many different methods. I've done the take a knife and squish it method. I've done the put it in a jar and shake it method. And then I also have this cool little gadget that, if you haven't got to see my video on my garlic oil and my flavored butter, I kind of introduced this cool little gadget in there as well. And it's really neat because you can stick your garlic cloves in it. It's silicone, and you just roll it and it peels off all the little papers for you. So there's a lot of really nice options out there. I'm just I'm not in any rush. Usually I would be like just trying to get it all done as quickly as possible. But honestly, I am not in any particular rush. I'm just kind of hanging out and chilling here. So I'm eating a late night dinner, and have just kind of been feeling like getting some garlic started. So I am gonna get these peeled, and I can actually show you those methods because they can be really, really helpful. So let me get that, and I will show you how easy it is to do your own garlic, and then we will make some garlic powder. It will be absolutely wonderful. There's nothing like homemade garlic powder and garlic salt. I'm telling you, the smell, the taste, like the aromatics, it's amazing how old the seasonings that you get in the store are, because they don't even smell the same. Like, you can smell how like weak they are. I actually had some fun when I first made it, and I had brought it over to my husband and I did a smell test. So I had my store-bought stuff that I still had left over, and I had my fresh that I had just made in another thing, and it was like he could smell it in the other room. It was so different. And he was like, well, what's this stuff in there? And I was like, that's the store-bought garlic powder. And he was like, no. He's like, that doesn't even smell like garlic. And I'm like, I don't know how old it is, but when you make it yourself, even if it's from cloves that you haven't grown, fresh garlic cloves, I'm telling you, makes all the difference. So I am going to, I just did that whole thing while I was just chatting with you. So I'm going to pop these in here, and I'm going to set you guys up so that you can see what I'm doing here, and we can make some garlic powder. I'll be back. Okay friends, I've got you right here so we can actually see what I'm doing here. So I've got my bowl with my garlic. Some of these are looking a little iffy, so I'll trim those off. I could tell when I first got it, that part was a little, I don't know if I'd say moldy, but it just kind of had a weird thing on it. So not really a fan of that. All right. So how this will work is extremely simple. We're just going to get all the papers off our garlic here. So what I'm gonna do is just give you a couple of little pointers on how you can do that. So you can get a jar and you can shake them. It's a very obnoxious way to do it, but you can do it that way. So if you get yourself a jar, any kind of jar honestly will do. I've got just some canning jars that I can show you here. So if you want to get your cloves of garlic, I always, if I'm going to be using the whole thing or I need to break it apart, I'm just going to take it and press down on it, and as you can see, that just pops the whole thing open. And most of them will actually come out in one big thing like that, which is super awesome. And so what you can do, let's scooch those out of the way. Obviously it can be a little bit messy. So you can take just the cloves, toss them in here like this, and give them a good shake with the papers on them. And just rinse that one, so it was a little wet. Give them a good shake for a good 20 or 30 seconds. I've seen this kind of work in some capacity sometimes, you know. So it definitely works. It's just a little bit more obnoxious. This garlic clove is feeling a little mushy. Okay. So as you can see, that way does work. It's just not the most effective way, but it does work. What you could do is take your knife, give them a nice little smash down, and then usually you can actually pop them right out like that. This one's got another kind of iffy spot, so we're going to cut that off. It's a really big clove, but there's quite a few little spots on that one. So I find that kind of doing a smash method and popping them out like that seems to be like one of the best options. You can actually give them a good smack or a good smash rather, and put them in the jar. You can do it that way. So if you kind of do this, toss them in here. I don't know, personally I feel like you're kind of, I don't know, doing the same process twice. Like I feel like it's unnecessary to do both of these things. Even if you have a big, you know, batch. Usually if you smash them down with a knife, they're going to just pop out of the papers. Like you can almost guarantee that, as you can see by example. But if you do have some stubborn ones, you know, give them a nice little smash and then put them in your jar. And then you can shake them up that way. The papers will come off a lot more efficiently. So there's papers there. So obviously that works pretty well for the most part, as long as you gave it a good enough smash. But then again, I'm like, well, why would I bother with that? Because there's a good chance I'm probably going to need to pop them out anyway. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Those two methods are great. This is the cool little doodad I got from my aunt. It's silicone. It's got kind of these like little lines in the centers of this. I don't exactly know if that actually serves an official purpose, but it's really amazing to be able to basically just do a quick nice little roll, and it also removes all the paper. So there's lots and lots and lots of different methods. I think this cool little gadget is definitely a favorite, and it's easy to clean, which I like too. Or the just kind of giving it a nice little smash method also works really well. So totally personal preference on how you want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep all the garlic that I want to do here. I'm not going to do all of these cloves because I do want some of them to eat fresh, but I could tell when I got them that there were some that were kind of iffy looking. This one that I actually was doing looked kind of like it was kind of already starting to turn a little bit. My hands are very sticky from the garlic. I don't want it to come off. And so I'm just kind of finding the ones that I want to get rid of first. I had a few like this that kind of looked a little bit more moldy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel quite a few of these that I'm interested in peeling. And then we will start the dehydrating process. So let's see, yeah, that one's also looking a little bit moldy. You can usually tell too, if you look at the tops here, this is where the neck is at of the garlic. So if you actually look at this and it's open, it's not sealed like this at the top. So if it's cut a lot shorter and it's open, let's see, a couple of them were like that. Of course, I don't have an example to show you anymore, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So if this part here, the little neck is open, the garlic is going to be very susceptible to mold if it gets wet. So if you ever notice any of those where the necks are open, it means that the garlic cloves on the inside are more susceptible to disease and mold and everything else. So if you ever get that when you get them at the store, make sure you use those first. So I was just looking specifically for those ones. This one had some paper already removed off the sides, so I don't want these ones to get wet, be susceptible to any kind of mold or who knows what else. So I'm going to get these all ready for the dehydrator, and then we will be back to start the dehydrating process and go from there. It's extremely, extremely easy. So I'll be back. Friends, I'm back, and we just finished doing 6 heads of garlic out of the 14. I wanted to make sure I had plenty to cook with, but I think this will give us a decent amount of garlic powder and go from there. So I've got 6 cloves here. No, sorry, 6 heads. I don't know why I keep saying cloves. Yes, each individual clove is fabulous. And it smells like heaven, and it's not even powder yet. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put all of this in my fabulous dehydrator. So I've got that right here. Let me pull it forward and I'll show you what it looks like. And it's very, like I said, it's very inexpensive. Got it on Amazon for pretty cheap. So it's called the Presto Dehydrato Food dehydrator. Very, very basic. It's got, as you can see, it's all round. It's got, you can tell I did herbs recently, so I need to make sure I clean this out. And each layer here, it's stackable trays. And you can keep purchasing more of these if you need. The 4 has worked perfect for me. So I've got, there's 1, 2, and then there's 3 and 4. And as you can see, they all kind of go like that. And then this goes on top. So it's very, very easy, very user-friendly, and it's pretty easy to use. So I'm just gonna give it a quick wipe down because it's last was used for my basil and some, let's see, basil and what was the other thing I used it for? Basil and parsley. There we go. So I've got all of those lovely things here. So this is a heating element down here. And so it basically uses a heat fan that goes up from the bottom and then goes through the trays is what it does. And so this is where all of the heat comes from, and then you've got your different trays here. So what you can do, because obviously each garlic clove is going to be a little bit different thickness, so it's got obviously smaller and bigger holes depending, and you want to make sure that this area where all the circles are at are not covered. So what you can do is you can line the tray with parchment paper. I've done that, and that works really well, but honestly, I don't think I have very many small cloves that I need to worry about that with. And even if I did have some really small cloves, I can just, like something like this, it's pretty small, I can just make sure that it's up closer where the smaller holes are at instead of the bigger ones, and that works perfectly fine. Now, one thing to think about as well when you're dehydrating is the thicker the cloves, the longer time it's going to take to dehydrate. So that is something to keep on the mind. But it's really this simple. I'm going to take these cloves and I'm going to scatter them along my trays. That's it. And so I've noticed with this particular one, the trays that are closer to the bottom obviously heat up a little bit quicker and dehydrate a little bit faster, which makes sense considering that the heating element is at the very bottom. So obviously that's totally makes sense. But there's no real like science to kneading it a specific way. I tend to try and put some of the smaller cloves at the top here, just so that way they get kind of more evenly cooked, or dehydrated rather. And since this doesn't have a timer, now a lot of dehydrators do have timers, but this one does not. And so I just kind of keep an eye on it and make sure that all of the garlic is thoroughly dehydrated. That's the only downside to having these kinds of dehydrators, is having ones that don't have a timer, is the fact that that is exactly how that works. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on this instead of being able to have a timer that I can come and check back on it in 20 hours or whatever the time frame is. I just keep an eye on it, and you can tell when they're ready or not. You don't have to worry about the smaller cloves and the bigger cloves. When you come and check on it and you see like some of the smaller ones may actually be already thoroughly dehydrated, what's really nice about that is you can take them out. You don't have to worry about leaving them in there. So if you notice something that dehydrates quicker than the other one, you can just take it out. And so if I have that come up, I'll show you. But otherwise, I'm just gonna let these sit in here and we're gonna turn it on. And it's literally that simple. I'm gonna let this sit for probably, well, I'll check on them in the morning, but this is just gonna sit on my countertop right here. This is where I kind of keep that kind of stuff, because again, I'm in an apartment, so I have to have as much space as I can. And then I plug this in, you'll kind of hear it because it's not quiet. So you can hear it. And so we're gonna let that sit, and then we'll check back on it in the morning, kind of get an idea of what they're looking like and go from there. But on average, I'd say it probably takes them a good 18 to 24 hours maybe to fully dehydrate. And so this honestly is the longest process, is just waiting for them to dehydrate. So we'll be back when we're ready to make it into some garlic powder or garlic salt. I'll be back. Hey friends, it's Becky back with Bountifully Blessed. We've been working on some garlic powder, and now we are finally looking at 44 hours later. I did not realize how fat some of these cloves were that I was working on, and so it's taken them quite a while to dry. So the next step in actually turning this into powder is actually extremely simple. So I've got all of our garlic here. So one thing that I want to show you that's really, really important, okay? A lot of these are actually still not, see how squishy that is? You can actually like see and feel. So there's a lot of these that are still like that. If you can feel any amount of squishiness, like this one isn't squishy over here, but there's squishiness over here, this needs to continue drying. The reason why that's extremely important is if you have any softness to it, what's going to happen is once you turn this into a powder, that amount of moisture is going to cause it to harden, and it's not going to last like at all. So if you have any give, I mean any at all, and you can go around and feel it, like this one has, like this section here still needs to go. So I would highly, highly recommend cutting these in half. I should have cut these in half at this point because they're just being serious pains in my butt at this point with how long I've been going with these. But you should be able to take them, and let's see, that one still needs to dry. Wow, even this one still needs to dry. That's kind of surprising. Some of these are just really, really stubborn. I feel like this one's pretty good. So you should be able to take them and break them like this if they're thoroughly dry, but don't count on that in every instance because, like I said, some little sections will be drier than others. So I actually have a lot of these that are very, very soft still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of filter through the few that I can use. Some of them, like, you can kind of see they look dry, but they're not really. And 100%. Perfect. So that one broke apart really easily. So it looks like my top tray needs to continue. Like I said, this has been going for 44 hours at this point, but that's okay. That's because this one doesn't have any settings. I do not have the option to be able to like pick and choose that. So a lot of these I really should have cut in half because the cloves were actually quite large. So I can actually like press my nail into this. You can see it kind of give. That one needs to continue going. So basically the gist of this is once these are all dry, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them in I've got this fabulous little coffee grinder here. This I got from, I think, Walmart for really cheap. And I have a feeling this bottom one's gonna be probably my best one. And then we're literally gonna grind them into a fine powder. It's pretty hard to mess that up, right? So, man, this is probably the longest I've had to dehydrate before. These ones were pretty fat. So what I'll do before I get the other ones started again is I'm gonna cut them in half. That way I know that they're thoroughly dried out. That one's still got a little bit of... Thankfully the ones on the bottom are usually the easiest. So, alright. Not nearly as many as I would have liked to show you guys, but that's okay. Alright. So I've got my garlic here. Oops, hold on. Make sure that that's actually ready to go. Some of these were down in the bottom apparently. So I'm going to get my little coffee grinder here. These are really good for beans. You can do nuts, all different kinds of things, but these are super, super helpful. Now, one thing that I would make sure that you know that's really important with this is if you use this for coffee beans, get a separate one for your garlic. You can kind of like clean it, so to speak, but let's be honest, who's going to assume that you're going to clean it thoroughly enough that it's not going to make your coffee taste like garlic or your garlic taste like coffee? So I'd highly encourage you to get 2 of them. They're cheap. I think I got this for like $8. So not a big deal. This one's super basic. It's just got this nice little push button here. Oh, maybe. Did I not? Well, apparently I've been using this quite long enough. I think I finally have killed it because it wouldn't turn on and then I couldn't get it to turn off. All right. It looks like it's smoking up in here, but all that is that yummy goodness. Oh my goodness. Once you start making your own garlic powder or garlic salt, I'm telling you, you will never buy from the store again. This stuff smells so amazing, and it lasts so much longer because it's so much more potent. You don't know how old what you're getting in the store really is. And so this stuff is amazing, I'm telling you what. So once you've got that all ground up to perfection, put it in your container. I have, let's see, there's my garlic salt here. I have an empty one that had garlic powder. Now I'm wondering where it made its way to. It was empty. Well, alrighty. I did have one that was labeled, but that's okay. I've got these nice little jars that I like to use, and as long as that's finely ground up, you can transfer that, and now it's ready to use. If you're gonna make salt, just basically roughly about 1 portion of your garlic powder to 3 portions of salt. Obviously that's gonna be to taste, but there's usually quite a bit more salt, especially when you're making it, because this stuff is very, very strong. So it's really that simple. Do it in small batches so that way you can make sure you get it all finely milled. I'm probably going to run this one more time just to make sure I've got all those little tiny specks that like to stay around, and then scoop that in there and boom, you're done. So let's give this one final blend, hopefully. Beautiful. I usually just smack the top of it because it likes to sit up there. And then I can just scoop this in there. Oh, it smells so good. There's just something so magical about garlic. So I'll get that scooped in here. And then obviously when the rest of it's done, I'll have a full container. But I'm going to give those a good cut up and then keep those dehydrating, because obviously they were a lot bigger cloves than I gave myself credit for. So this one likes to kind of collect underneath of the little blade. So I just like to scoop out what's there. And like I said, make sure that they're thoroughly dried out. If you think that it's good enough and it doesn't seem 100% dry, don't do it. You will learn the hard way, and it'll ruin all of the garlic that you have, because that little bit of moisture is going to cause all of the rest of it to harden. I have the biggest struggle with that with my onion powder, because it seemed like it was dry and I could not get it to not be hardened every time I went to go use it. So I finally tossed it and did a new batch and didn't have that issue after that. All because of, you know, that one little obnoxious piece that stayed in there. So it's really that simple to make your own garlic powder or garlic salt. So I already have garlic powder, or garlic salt, sorry. So obviously this is my garlic powder. I will have quite a bit more once it's actually finished, but this stuff will last you a really long time, and it smells heavenly. So if you haven't given it a try, I highly encourage you to make your own. It's so much better. It will last you much longer. If you compare side by side what store-bought versus homemade smells like, it's a night and day difference. You can't even tell that the other one's really garlic. So I love doing that and having my husband kind of smell test. So I remember the first time I made my own garlic powder, I came in with the store-bought bottle, and I came in with the fresh made stuff, and I opened the containers and I didn't show him what it was, and I had him smell it, and he was like, can't really tell what that is. And all of a sudden, like from a mile away, he was like, whoa, that is garlic. And I was like, yep, it is. So you don't need like almost any of this because of how strong it is. And let's be honest, garlic's amazing. Anyways, that is how simple it is to make your own garlic powder or garlic salt. It is delicious. I encourage you to do it. If you don't have a dehydrator, not a big deal. Let it set out on the counter, put it in your oven. There's lots of different ways to utilize dehydrating things. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, we usually overcomplicate things that are actually quite simple. We just think that they're complicated, so therefore we don't do it because of that. So I hope this encourages you to make your own garlic powder, garlic salt, or dehydrate something else and make something else that you really, really like and that you use a lot of. So we'll be back to do some more of these fun kinds of things. But basically, if it's going to be powder, you're going to dehydrate whatever it is that you need to be in powder and turn it into a powder. Pretty basic, right? Anyways, have an awesome evening, and I pray that you are bountifully blessed. Till next time.